Okay, hello again, everyone. It's Naomi Wolf of Daily Clout and Outspoken. In a slightly different context today, I'm back with an episode of my podcast that I only do occasionally, and it's called The Bad Cook. And, I've explained this before, but in case you weren't with us last time, the reason I started this feature called The Bad Cook is that I am a bad cook. I'm a bad cook. I sometimes and increasingly, in spite of being a bad cook, make food that's really tasty, nutritious, and that my family enjoys, and even my friends, unless they're just being polite. But I'm not a good cook. I have all the sense of being intimidated with cooking and ingredients that many people have. And that's kind of why I wanted to showcase the fact that I'm a bad cook, because I feel like sometimes I'll go on, YouTube or other sites that have cooking shows, and I'll be very captivated, and it's very, wonderful to watch and observe, but I can't relate. There are multi-step recipes, or things turn out looking absolutely perfect, or there are skills that I haven't mastered, knife skills, or very exotic ingredients that I don't know how to track down, or that I don't have time to track down. Really, time is a huge factor. So I thought it would be a good idea to show that even someone without any skills at all in the kitchen can make tasty food, and also to do it in a very kind of not perfect way. So that's why you've got, we're here at home in Brooklyn, in our tiny miniature kitchen. Loki's circling around at my feet. I am wearing Brian's dad hat because I just needed something to keep my hair out of my face. And you can see that I'm about to make a super simple recipe. So I also wanted to share with you that I posted recently that I saw a ton of processed food and junk food packaging when the recycling was stacking up a few weeks ago here in New York City, here in Brooklyn. And I was particularly sad to see this in some neighborhoods that are really low income, where many people depend on Section 8 housing, and also on EBT or SNAP, on the food programs, in order to feed their families. And I wasn't judging at all. I don't feel judgmental at all. God bless everyone who's trying to make ends meet and feed their family healthy food, or just feed their family. But I was sad, thinking, as I have been, about the health problems in America. We talk about that a lot on my show, and thinking about seeing the kids in our neighborhood who are, very often very low energy, very just not eating healthy food. Like, you can see it in the morning. They're lining up to buy chips and candy for breakfast. And I have a stepson in public school, and what they give him to eat in his, perfectly presentable public school is absolutely shocking. It's so bad. Just processed food, calzones, pizza, frozen food, day after day after day. And it's my understanding that in many schools, they've phased out industrial kitchens altogether, and they're just microwaving processed food. So for all of these reasons, I made that post, and then there was a really interesting response to it. And people really reacted and shared. And what many people shared, they were very honest, but what they really shared was that a lot of people have very good reasons for just picking up processed food at the supermarket and heating it up for their families after a long day at work. And the reasons really, got manifested in this conversation. So people we're tired, you know, and people also, younger people, home ec has been phased out. And so a lot of younger people have never been taught to cook, and they don't understand, you know, what to older people are very basic instructions like saute or, you know, braise. Well, braise is a tough one. Or, you know, dice or mince, right? No one's ever explained these things to them. Yes, you can Google it. Yes, everything's online, but they felt, you know, sincerely intimidated. And they also talked about cost. And then other people who do cook chimed in and said it's actually much cheaper to cook. And they shared a lot of really inexpensive, fast, tasty, healthy recipes, healthful recipes. My father would kill me. He's an English professor, healthful. So I thought I would just do an episode cooking a beef cabbage soup in the crock pot. I have become enamored of the crock pot, especially in the light of what so many people shared about time, because you can literally just dump things into it and come back to a hot meal, which is kind of amazing. And also, it's very difficult to ruin things in the crock pot. Things just tend to taste good in the crock pot. So if you are, like me, a bad cook with no cooking skills, the crock pot is a wonder. And so I also thought I would just like realistically time this recipe so that you can see for yourself if you can really get something tasty and healthful into your family or into a crock pot to get into your family eventually in a matter of, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes, and affordably, right? So before we begin, because I am going to time it to see if I can do it in a, you know, reasonably quick amount of time, I just want to walk through what I spent. These carrots were about 79 cents for a package, and I've got about 4 carrots left. The celery was about $1.50 for a package, and I've got like 3 left for a snack. Garlic was about $1.50, and I'm going to use a head of garlic. Actually, really just 2 cloves, but I'm going to throw in extra garlic tonight. Cabbage, I ordered this on Farm Match from the farm store. So it's really, you know, well sourced from a farm, and I'm helping to support farms. It was really affordable. It was like $2.50 for, you know, a nice big head of cabbage that's lasted really well, not as kind of beaten up looking as supermarket cabbages. I'll let you see how beautiful that is. And I also have here, this is $4.75. That's pretty pricey. Diced tomatoes from the bodega. So I'm sure you can get those cheaper, but I asked Brian to pick them up. They're organic. You know, obviously, if you're watching your budget, you know, organic is a luxury, but it is a pretty big 28-ounce fire roasted diced tomatoes, $4.75. I bet we could get that cheaper if we looked, but that's what we've got. And early garden French style green beans. You could be a purist and do fresh green beans, but this was about $1.25. And then the meat, of course, is the most expensive part. And I'll show you. These are 3 beautiful soup bones. And I can't even believe I got these. They were, I think, pretty cheap for meat. There's a real old-fashioned butcher in this neighborhood around the corner called Best Butcher. They've been there since the 80s. And they've got really, I think they've got really good prices compared to supermarket meat. And I think that the sourcing is better. And they've also got really interesting things that people in this local neighborhood like to cook, like oxtails and chicken backs for soup and chicken feet for soup and, you know, tripe and various, you know, liver and kidneys and things that, you know, many people often throw away or that you don't find easily anymore in supermarkets. Or, you know, you have to look, but they're really good for you. And so these are soup bones. And, you know, you think, oh, soup bone, that doesn't sound very like that's much meat, but it's a ton of meat. These are 3 soup bones, about 2 pounds worth of meat for $6.29 a pound. So this is the most expensive thing in the soup. it came out to about $13 for this giant amount of very beautiful meat, with also very nutritious marrow in there, very good for your joints. If you have any pets, they love that to bits. But that's the meat that we're going to use. So the total, and then, random spices, black pepper, Himalayan salt, not that random. They're good to have in the pantry. Garlic powder, and Italian seasoning. And again, we're lucky because we're in a very diverse neighborhood here in Brooklyn with a lot of different food ways, as they say. And so there are a lot of bulk spices that are very, very affordable. This was less than $2, for instance. But you can also order online. I like iherb.com for bulk spices. And it's much cheaper to order bulk spices than to order tiny amounts, when you run out. They really mark them up when you're buying tiny amounts. So the total, what would that be? It's less than $20. And it's going to feed, it's a huge amount of meat. I'm adding more meat than the recipe calls for because Brian really likes meat. But it's going to feed us. The last time I made a pot of soup, it fed us for like 4 meals. And you can freeze it. And so when you come in after a long day of work, or you come in after traveling and you just don't have the energy to cook, it's absolutely incredible. And I can't claim, like, something that really annoys me is these lifestyle shows are like, oh yeah, I just, freeze my herbs, or I, always have fresh herbs in my window box, or I, freeze my homemade bone broth and I always have it. And it makes it sound like these people literally are completely on top of their lives. They always have everything they need. And, they are completely planning ahead. They're never left stressed and just wanting to order DoorDash. And I think that's a little deceptive. Like, I don't know anyone whose real life is like that, even if they present really beautifully on camera. So I'm not going to pretend that more than once or twice have I managed to freeze the soup and then thaw it and have it, but I have managed to. It did happen. And there have been definitely times we've come in really late, exhausted, and I have thawed out the soup and heated it up and felt really, really proud of myself and good about myself. The other thing I want to say is, even if you are an intimidated cook, the way you feel when you feed something tasty and nutritious and affordable, because that's really important, to your family, those of you who cook know this, but those of us who don't, cook comfortably or easily really have to reinforce it in our minds. It's an amazing feeling. And I just can't stress enough how good it feels to be able to ladle up something that is steaming and comforting on a cold day, to Brian or to my kids or to my stepson or my stepdaughter, and have them like it and gobble it up. I spent much of my life not having that wonderful experience. So that's really, really good. And then the last thing I really want to talk about is money. When we order DoorDash, which we try not to do, right? But it's so tempting when you're really exhausted and, just craving distraction and ease. It's always like $40 to $60, no matter how careful you are. And I've written about how DoorDash also has very deceptive practices. Like they'll, offer you a free thing or 2 for 1, and then, it'll vanish when you check out, but you've already spent the money, and then you call customer service. It's terrible. It's, it's kind of a scam. And I think there are also like hidden costs. Like, I think that those companies rely on undocumented labor and pay them under the table. They undercut American labor practices and American workers. And I don't know, I don't think it's good for the environment to order a burrito for your taxi. A taxi for your burrito if you can afford it. Maybe a burrito for your taxi is easier, but it's kind of ridiculous to have a human being drive with your little package of food. I'm not saying you, I'm saying me, right? Us. It's ridiculous for us to ask a human being to drive across town to deliver our food hot and then throw out all that packaging and then spend $40 to $60 if we could just make, 4 meals for $20 for ourselves, right? So here we go. That's my pitch to you. And let me know if you have any questions. LinkedIn user says Naomi's the best. That's so sweet. Thank you so much. And please don't mock my hat. It's what I had. And here we go. I've washed my hands. You can see here, but I'm going to have to figure out a better kind of GoPro system, that I've got my ingredients laid out, and it took me about 5 minutes. Well, it took realistically about 10 minutes because I did 3 minutes on each side in the air fryer, and the air fryer could only fit one at a time. So it was about 9 minutes already for this guy, but I could do other stuff while I was heating those up in the air fryer. So I'm not sure we can legitimately count that. I have my onions, and what I love about recipes like this is you can really get rid of anything you've got in your refrigerator that could be about to go bad. And we waste so much food, right, in this country and many countries by things just going bad. We buy them, we don't use them in time, they're perishable. Pardon me. So I had this onion again from Farm Match that was looking almost on its last legs. I have these carrots. I had the celery. Again, you can see that this was the last day of the celery, but it's still totally usable in soup. And I have some kind of, mushrooms from Farm Match, cremini mushrooms, and I've washed them all. And that took me about 2 minutes to wash them. I haven't washed this guy yet because I didn't want to cheat by washing too much. I've got my can opener. I've got my cans. I've got my spices. Again, less than 5 minutes to get everything ready. And they do say it helps a lot to get everything ready. And the last thing I want to say is so many of us have ADD, and we have ADD for good reasons. The devices we use, make it much more likely that we'll have ADD. I think they cause ADD. But the reason I mention that is, for me personally, multi-step instructions are very, very difficult. Do this, then this, then this, then this, then this. I often will skip something critical or skip an ingredient that's critical. And I mention that because I think that's true for a lot of us. So I think simpler recipes are really good, at least for me, maybe for many of you. So the bad cook is going to specialize in recipes with not many steps and things that can't really go horribly wrong. LinkedIn user is making interesting points. Here she says, DoorDash also algorithms people based on neighborhood and what the algo says they will do, and they charge more. The express delivery is a scam. I am not surprised, honestly. I believe it. I'm embarrassed. I'm sure I'm sure I got a 20% markup because who knows why? Because they probably, read all my data. Okay, guys, I am going to now, let's start. It is now 8:19, so I've been talking for 19 minutes. So now I'm going to, let's all imagine I'm a busy mom. Imagine I have, small children, which I no longer do. I have one wonderful stepson who's learning to cook himself, but I no longer have, small kids of my own at home that I have to cook for every night after a long day at work. So we're going to imagine that I do, because that's the reality, or elderly parents, or, a spouse, or whoever you're cooking for, yourself, right? Tired, right? Not wanting to deal with it, very exhausted, cranky, and so on. So we've done this. That's 9 minutes, but I was checking my phone. I was doing other things. Again, I don't think that counts. We're going to now set the timer. It's almost 8:20, and we're going to go ahead and act like it's or get started at 8:20. I'm going to take my knife. Again, knife skills are something I'm working on. But I'm going to go to the sink, and I'm going to not peel these because that takes time, and you don't need to if you scrape them. This is something that someone taught me long ago. So that's the sink, and I'm going to wash these and scrape them. And you can see, I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm going to scrape these while we're talking. And they look good. They're still not as beautiful as they would be if I had peeled them, but time is the essence. So now I'm going to readjust this. You can see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to cut them up. And I'm going to cut them up. If you were really fancy, you could cut them in half, like lengthwise. And there went one. And they would, be prettier, cook a little bit differently, but time is of the essence, and you can see me losing a couple on the way, but I got most of them, and they're cut. I cut them on a diagonal because that was what I was taught to do when I was little. I actually had someone teach me and my brother to cook. She was a babysitter, and she knew how to cook, and she taught me how to make diagonals, and that is literally the extent of my skills in cutting up this carrot, but I think it looks pretty good. I mean, yes, I'm losing some along the way, and you probably would be more skillful, but I've got my carrots. And I'm going to scrape this a little more because it's not that pretty, but I'm just going to cut it again on the diagonal. You can see what I'm doing. People with really fancy knife skills do this super fast. I don't have those skills. I'm not doing it super fast. And I have to curl. My husband will remind me to curl my fingers in so I don't chop my hand off while I'm cutting. All right, so we now have 3 carrots in there. And I have been told, and I forgot to do it, that it's important to keep your, there we go, to keep a little bowl so that you can throw things in the bowl as you go along. So that's what I'm doing. And we've got our scraps, right? If I was really fancy, I would save these for bone broth. I don't know that I'll have the time to do that, certainly not tonight. But here I'm moving on to my carrot, to my, onion. And there I'm being a little bit fancier. I don't know if you can see that because I did learn how to do this, but I cut them all on the kind of vertically, and now I'm cutting them. I turned them and cut them crossways. So that's, so that's, fancy way I was taught to cut onions. It's one of the few things I know how to do that is kind of impressive, at least to me. I have a low bar for impressing myself when it comes to cooking. But there you can see that very quickly you get diced onions. And one thing that did come up a lot when we were talking about why do we not cook is people did talk about time and prep. And, it really became clear that a lot of people just feel scared of what it takes to, spin lettuce or, I don't know, chop things or mince things. I mean, I'm scared of mincing things, God knows, but that's why, again, that's why I'm the bad cook, so that you can see things being really imperfect. And, this isn't for everyone. I'm sure there are people watching this who are like, oh, come on, Naomi, everyone knows how to do that. But the reality is not all of us know how to do it easily, and a little bit of reinforcement really helps. Okay, so we're moving right along. We're throwing in, that was, I threw in a shallot, which was going to go, and an onion, a full onion. Now I'm going to mince some garlic. I like a lot of garlic. I like a lot of garlic because I have joint issues. Many of you know I have spina bifida occulta, which is a spinal, I don't like to say disease, but condition that can make it hard for me to walk. And that's a drag. But as many of you know, if you follow my work, I try to address it with a lot of herbs and anti-inflammatory food. And it helps a lot. It doesn't completely heal me, but it definitely helps. I definitely feel the difference when I'm not eating anti-inflammatory food or taking herbal supplements that are good for inflammation. And that is my nicely, not perfectly minced, but reasonably minced garlic clove. Now, the recipe calls for 2 garlic cloves, but I'm going to add at least 3 because, again, I really like garlic and I want it to be very, very garlicky, because garlic, as you know, if you followed my work on garlic and alliums in general, is so anti-inflammatory. It's so good for you. Pardon me, I'm having a wardrobe malfunction. And then I'm going to throw in 1 more, because why not? We've got a ton of meat. It's going to season it up really nicely to have extra garlic. You kind of, in my view, can never have too much garlic. So in goes the garlic. Okay. Good. And we're mincing it. I'm keeping my finger curled like that when I hold the garlic cloves so that I don't cut my finger off. And you're going to see in a minute, there is a 3rd clove of garlic. And I could be listening to a book on tape right now. I could be talking to, my children or my spouse, or just having some quiet time to myself. And so that's 3 cloves of garlic in the crock pot. All right. Now, the recipe calls for 2 celery sticks. I'm going to add 3 because I just feel like we've added all that garlic. Let's add a little more celery just to balance it out. I'm kind of making that up. But I cut I'm going to show you like from square one. I cut the bottom off. Again, if you're a seasoned cook, don't laugh. You may know this. You may think everyone does, but not everyone does. And then I cut the top off right where there's that little, right before that little indentation. And again, you can save these for bone broth and you can freeze them, the leftovers, the scraps. And we'll do that in another video because that too sounds super intimidating unless you're doing it. So now let me show you what I'm doing here because this is pretty cool. You can line up your celery, like I've got 3 lined up together, and you can cut them together to speed the process. You don't have to cut them all individually one by one. I'm going to take this off because it looks a little dodgy. Throw it in the crock pot. Throw it in the crock pot. I'm getting into a rhythm. This is kind of fun. Lots of sirens outside. New York is going crazy. There's so much craziness in New York right now. As you know, I did a video on it today, but tonight we're just enjoying cooking. All right. Now, diced tomatoes. This is a can. It's a 28-ounce can. I'm going to just throw it in. I'm going to open it with my can opener. Here we go. Again, you can get a cheaper version of this. Probably more like $3.50. Save $1.25. Just goes right in, including the liquid. And it's got that nice, it's got a fire roasted quality. So that's going to smoke it up a little and add a little bit more depth of flavor. And yeah, and then I've got green beans. I like green beans. Some recipes call for green beans, others don't. If I were super fancy and had lots of time, obviously it's optimal to, I'm draining it. Obviously it's optimal to, cook your own green beans from scratch and use fresh ones, but we're not doing that because we're all about speed tonight and simplicity. So it's not optimal. They don't taste, as delicious as fresh green beans, but imagine you've got kids, they're hungry, you've got a spouse who's been working all day, you want to get it done fast. And then lastly, this cabbage. It calls for half the head of cabbage. I am going to wash this cabbage. I'll orient you toward the sink so you can see. And we are trying not to use paper towels in our house because of the waste. And so we find that, napkins do just as well and can be reused. But here is this beautiful cabbage. And I'm a little bit intimidated because I was taught how to do this a long time ago, but I don't remember. So how do we cut the cabbage? All right, I'm going to just cut it in half. And that's not working that well. I should have looked this up. It was a smaller cabbage the last time I did this. Okay, I'm sure this is not the safest way to cut. If you know a better way, greetings from Texas. Hi, Guillermo Cervera, nice to see you. If you know a better way to cut the cabbage, let me know. I don't want to take any risks here. I know you're supposed to get rid of the core first. So I'm cutting around the core, but I really don't want to have anything slip and cut myself. Oh, the minutes are ticking away, you guys. What am I going to do? I'm sawing it. Man, maybe this is the farm match cabbage, but it is a tough cabbage. I am daunted. You know what I'm going to do? Problem solving. I'm going to cut it into ribbons on the head of the cabbage and then cut it up from there. That's very clever. I'm very proud of myself. So you see the ribbons are coming off. Cabbage is a cruciferous vegetable, and so even though a lot of people don't like cabbage, and I don't like it, in everything or it prepared in every way. I don't like coleslaw, for instance. Who really does? But I do like it in a lovely soup with beef. And it tasted really good when I last made this. And it's so good for you. So cruciferous vegetables are those vegetables that we need to get like several times a day in order to be optimally healthy, essential for cell health and brain health and anti-inflammatory. So now I'm sure I'm not doing this in an optimal way, but it's working okay. I am creating ribbons out of the cabbage. Again, I'm losing some. This is why it's called the bad cook. And here we go. And if anything is too big and chunky, I cut it smaller. In my defense, this was a very, very, very intensely hard to cut cabbage, maybe because it comes straight from a farm, who knows. But we've got it, and we've got enough of it. And it's supposed to be about half a head of cabbage. So I'm going to do a little bit more, so it's a full half of a head of cabbage. Can you guys see everything? I don't know how cooking shows have all those camera angles, but we are doing what we can do here with what we've got. So I'm adding a little more cabbage. Oh boy. I'm going to cut it up a little more. And there we go. And so this is coming together now in layers, you guys, and you're going to mix it up. But it's so easy. I'm literally just throwing things in and they're landing in layers. Okay. Ideally, this cabbage would be so cuttable that you'd just be going like this, but it's not. So I'm sawing a little, which is, not optimal, but again, it's fine. Okay, we did the cabbage. I'll clean all of this up and we're done. We've got that in. Now, they want you to take like a tablespoon of garlic powder. So just a regular old tablespoon. You don't need anything fancy. You can use measuring spoons if you want to be super cautious, but it's okay to approximate as well. There's that tablespoon. They want a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. So I'm going to use the same tablespoon and just approximate half of that Italian seasoning. You can add more, of course, if you want. And garlic. And I'm going to use the special little, this is one of those things I love. When I was a child, I loved this so much. There's a little one for shaking over your food. There's a little one for dipping a spoon into. And there's one for pouring out of a hole. And when I was a child, I just thought that was so incredibly clever. So my tablespoon is not going to work here. So I'm going to get a little teaspoon so I can dip it right in or pour it. Usually I would do this over the sink, but I want to be sure to show you. And so this is about half a teaspoon. I'm going to add a little bit more. 3/4 of a teaspoon there. All right, now I'm going to throw in the meat, you guys. I'm just going to throw it in. Watch me do it. Soup bone into the pot. Soup bone into the pot. And there's just enough room for the last soup bone in the pot. And we're just going to salt and pepper. Oh, we haven't added the salt yet. We're going to salt and pepper the meat, and we're also going to add salt to the whole thing. I'm adding the Himalayan salt, and I'm just throwing it in, turning it over, throwing it in, turning it over very casually. And the last one, turning it over. It's all salted. And I'm also going to throw in, a little more salt, not really measuring it. They want about a teaspoon of salt. All right, now we're going to put 5 cups of liquid in. So I'm over here by the sink, and here's my measuring cup. And this is just 1 cup. So I'm going to do this 5 times. Okay, and I'll orient this so you can see. Super easy. We're almost done, you guys. You won't believe it. Real time, what's going to be when I'm done. Okay. 5 cups, and it's just at the top of the pot. If you can see this crock pot, you can see, I wonder if there's a way I can pull it closer to you. You can see that it's right, the water is right where at the top of the lid, at the top of where the lid begins, right? And the lid just fits over all this food. So now I'm going to find out where the dial is. There it is. I don't know if you can see the dial. You probably should be able to. And there are things I decided not to throw in at the last minute. Like I decided at the last minute, mushrooms, which are not in the original recipe, really wouldn't work that well in this set of flavors. So they're going over there. So look, this is so easy, okay? I'm putting it on high. It's going to be on high for 2 hours, and then I'm going to switch it down to low. And that's it. And then I'll come back. How long has that been? 8:38. I didn't do it in 15 minutes, but I did it in 18 minutes. That's pretty good. Don't you think that's pretty good? I think that's pretty good. 18 minutes to get this meal ready. It is messy, so add another 5 minutes to clean up. And I'll see you, gosh, when should I see? You can also leave it for 4 hours on high. So 2 hours on high, then like 3 hours on low, or 4 hours on high, and you're done. So it's now 8:39 East Coast time. 4 hours is going to be too late for those of you who go to bed at a normal hour, but it's going to be at 12:39. I'm not going to wake you up at 12:39 to show you my soup. I will show you my soup. I will record it at 12:39 and show you the whole thing tomorrow. But that's it. You have dinner, and you can go out. You can go for a walk, go for a run in the park, go play with your kids, come back in 4 hours and dinner's ready, or leave it all day and come home to dinner. Okay, guys, I will come back, and let's see. Guillermo's being so nice. Greetings from Texas. That looks delicious. That's so sweet. And Cozy Tea Lady. I don't really have other comments, but that I can see. They're out there on the different platforms. But I'll take the lid off in 4 hours. I'll record it and I'll post the whole stream with what you get after you spent 18 minutes preparing this meal and less than $20. And you can see it tomorrow on Outspoken or on Rumble or on my various podcast platforms. This is Naomi Wolf. See, I raced through. That was 40 minutes altogether, but only 18 minutes cooking. Do you want to see me clean up so we see what that adds to the total? I'm not going to make you watch me clean up. I'm going to say it's going to add 5 minutes to the total. Okay, just loading things in the dishwasher. And delicious soup for enough for, I wouldn't say 3 meals, 2 people, and leftovers that you can put in the freezer and have for when you have had a long day and you come home and you need something simple to tide you over. And very nutritious. All right, guys, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I get to take off my hat now, my dad hat, and see if you have any questions or comments. And I really don't see any questions or comments. So I don't know if I have won you over or maybe you think I know how to do that. Oh, there's my good friend, Daniel Kahawali from Hawaii, right? And he says, love you, Dr. Wolf. Well, that's so sweet. That's so nice. And Guillermo says, wonderful work. I'm like, I literally know that this is like, junior high school level cooking, but that is so nice of you to say. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate your support. And thank you for watching. Guys, let me know in the comments. Did this encourage you at all? Well, I guess until you see it and, sort of taste it virtually, you won't know if it encourages you at all. But did it seem less intimidating? If you're at all intimidated by cooking, if you cook all the time, what do you think? Did I make any huge mistakes? But I guess what I just want to stress is there's literally nothing that can go wrong. You take these ingredients, you whack them in there, nothing that can go wrong. So we'll see what all the flavors are like in 4 hours. And in the meantime, thank you for joining me, everybody. Let me know what else you are thinking about. It's been lovely to spend time with you and share our humble, tiny kitchen in Brooklyn with you. And I look forward to showing you what this delicious soup looks like when it's ready. And we have some nice bread from Farm Match in the refrigerator. It's an Eichhorn loaf. I'll show it to you if I can get it easily. I didn't have that ready. Here it is. Here it is. Dropping things. A little nervous. I've never done a whole meal on camera before, but this is the Eichhorn loaf. And I mention this because, Guillermo Cervera, I'm impressed by the way you pronounce my name. You're very kind. It's sort of you're giving me a lot of credit for very, very simple things to do, but thank you. I do try to pronounce people's names correctly. Sourdough einkorn bread from Walnut Run Farm. Again, not more expensive than supermarket bread. You'd be surprised. This was about, I guess technically it's more expensive. This is about $9, but it lasts forever. I know you've seen the videos of people holding bread under the running water in the sink and smushing it, American bread, and it literally doesn't disintegrate because it's so full of preservatives. I also did a feature on my podcast showing that American bread is full of sperm suppressants, and that is true of American processed cereals, breakfast cereals as well. which is another reason it's crazy for schools to be feeding our kids processed flour in pizza and calzones and so on almost every day in public schools. But you can avoid that at home at any rate, obviously by baking your own bread, which is something I cannot claim to have the time to do. And I'm honestly, not that interested in it because we don't eat much bread, but I can't tolerate gluten like a lot of people, probably because of the glyphosate that's used in the cooking of American flour. A lot of people have had this experience that when they go to Italy or even France, even if they're gluten intolerant in the US, when they're in Italy or France, they're fine. And there are various reasons, but the main reason people assume is because glyphosate is not allowed in Europe. So I can't eat wheat in America without getting quite ill, processed wheat. But this einkorn bread, which is kind of a subspecies of sourdough, I guess, with einkorn flour, cultured milk, water, grass-fed Jersey milk, honey, pastured soy-free eggs, organic olive oil, grass-fed butter, organic blackstrap molasses, real salt and baking soda, no preservatives. There's literally not anything you can't, pronounce on this list of ingredients. Walnut Run Farm. It's made with heritage grains. So einkorn is a heritage grain. It's not one of the grains used in industrial farming anymore. It smells wonderful. And I really love this bread because you can toast it in the air fryer. I use my air fryer all the time because I have no time and no skills, as you know. But if you toast this in the air fryer, it gets a really chewy, crispy exterior, chewy interior. And it's very, very filling. Like a lot of American bread really isn't filling, and it just spikes your glucose levels. And then you're hungry, half an hour later, and you just crave sugar or whatever, you get tired. It doesn't happen with this einkorn loaf. So using the heritage grains, who knows what the difference is? I haven't, dove into the science of this, but it doesn't have that effect. It's incredibly, like you read about bread being the staff of life in the Middle Ages, and that people lived mostly on bread in Europe. And you kind of think, if you're used to American bread, well, how was that? That must have been really bleak. But this really sustains you. And it sustains, it's very life-sustaining, very filling, very, very, very nutritious, won't bother you probably if you are gluten sensitive. So I mention this because a bowl of this soup with all this good meat and protein in it, and one slice of this bread toasted in the air fryer, which let's say add another 3 minutes, it's a gorgeous meal. And any kids who are, picky eaters will be very, very happy with a meal like that. The other thing you can do with the einkorn bread is just wax some sliced cheese on it, melt it under the air fryer. I like to cut up little cherry tomatoes, and put them on a slice of einkorn bread, cover it with cheese, put it in the air fryer. Absolutely delicious, very nutritious. Or you can toast it in the air fryer, slice up some avocado. All of that is just a wonderful snack for kids. Doesn't take longer than heating up a pizza pocket. I found out to my horror that one of the top 3 products that people buy with SNAP and EBT is pizza pockets, or Hot Pockets. They're called Hot Pockets, that they heat up in the microwave. And it's understandable if you don't know how to cook and you want to give your child something with a little bit of protein, or if you're a child, latchkey kid coming home in the afternoon, you're hungry and you don't, have something you can make easily as a snack. Totally understandable. You would reach for that. But if you teach your kids to just pop this in the air fryer, add peanut butter with honey on top, or peanut butter with banana slices, they can do it very young. And it's so much better for them than the Hot Pockets with the sperm suppressant preservatives. We don't need them to have that. Okay, I have shared my thoughts with you, and now I want to thank our sponsor. And you really should pay attention to this, both of these posts. American Alternative Assets points out that right now we're watching two global flashpoints unfold at the same time. The takedown of El Mencho has thrown Mexico into chaos, and US-Iran military tensions are escalating faster than anything we've seen in years. Here's what most people don't realize. Every time global instability spikes like this, one asset surges, and that is gold. It happened after 9/11. It happened during the 2008 financial crisis. It happened when Russia invaded Ukraine, and it's happening again right now. There's a new free report called the Global Crisis Playbook that lays out exactly what's going on and what it means for your retirement. It includes a step-by-step guide to moving your retirement into physical gold, tax-free and penalty-free, plus a 7-point checklist experts say every retiree should complete before the next crisis hits. You're not going to hear this on the evening news, but if you have a 401k, IRA, or any retirement savings, this is worth reading. Download it free at cloutgold.com or call 855-803-GOLD to get your copy mailed to you. That's cloutgold.com or 855-803-GOLD. Also, let me ask you something. When a big IPO hits the market and jumps 30% on day one, who has really made the money? Because after 45 years in the markets, here's the truth. By the time the opening bell rings, Wall Street insiders have already positioned themselves. Venture funds, institutional capital, the well-connected crowd, they buy in years before the headlines, while companies are still private. Then IPO day becomes a media spectacle, hype, momentum, fear of missing out. But that's not early. That's after early investors have already seen the biggest gains. For decades, access to pre-IPO growth was limited to insiders. That's beginning to change. Today, there are regulated ways for everyday investors to gain exposure before the bell, before the frenzy. If you'd like to learn how it works, go to preIPObackdoor.com. That's preIPObackdoor.com, because when the crowd shows up, the real fortunes may already be gone. Thank you so much for joining me. It's Naomi Wolf. You can find me on Outspoken on Daily Clout. That's not right. You can find me on Substack on You can find me on Substack. My Substack is called Outspoken. You can also find it on Rumble. And you can find me and a ton of amazing commentators, incredible independent journalism, as well as access to Bill Cam and Legisector, which give you legislative information in your pocket. You can start bills or stop them. That's over at dailyclout.io. Please subscribe. If you can afford to subscribe as a paid subscriber on Substack, please do it. If you like these posts, if they're useful to you, if you like the independent journalism, the essays, the interviews, and over on Daily Clout, please do become a supporting member as well. It takes resources to keep these podcasts and essays and journalism and opinion. The Daily Clout Network, which is independent, not funded by any government, not funded by any state funding or NGO funding, just funded by people like you, getting you news, information, opinion, and information like this that you can't get anywhere else. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful night, and join me tomorrow when I unveil what's in the crock pot. Let's see. And another nice note from our good friend Daniel Kahawai. I'm happy to find you live here on YouTube. Thank you for keeping the light on. What a beautiful note to end on. Thank you all for keeping the lights on. We do it together. And thank you, Daniel. So nice to see you virtually. Have a wonderful night, everyone. And join me to unveil our soup You'll see it tomorrow. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a